Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets at Rob with another Mets pregame show here. And of course, we're going to lead right into Mets Pirates game 3 of the series, rubber game match for the series win. Let's just say it as it is, guys. Doesn't matter if we win or lose, especially when it comes to the standings, but it will matter when it comes to the top 6 picks in the MLB draft for next year. Mets need to be in the top 6 picks to not drop down 10 spots, because they went over the luxury tax by $40 million. So they will be dropping down 10 spots if they don't find themselves within the top 6 picks based on standings. Right now, they're tied with 3 other teams with their 54 and 66 record. And yes, the Pirates are one of those teams. I think Detroit has the 6th spot right now. 7, 8, and 9 is 3 teams with the same record as the Mets, and one of those teams is the Pirates, and there's another team in there in between them that are right there neck and neck. So again, if the Mets are 7th in the draft, they're going to drop down to 17th, and if they end up in the top 6, their second round pick is the pick that gets dropped down to 10 spots. So you're looking at it in this sort of way, right? You always got that fire, that competitiveness, that urge to win, but you also got to realize is that this year is done. This year means nothing. And, you're going to see the Ortegas, the Stewarts, the Araruzes of the world, and a lot of different bullpen arms as well. But they're getting showcased right now. These guys are getting opportunities at the big league level who can possibly be depth pieces next year. They could be bench pieces next year. They could end up being in the bullpen next year. So there's a lot of things to look at other than this team sucks and why would you watch? There's a lot of things to watch. And if you're a real fan of a baseball team, no matter if they're doing good or bad, especially when they're bad, there's other things to look at as a fan, because you can't just show up next year and be like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, who's that guy? Well, you didn't watch at all, and then you wonder why you don't know what's going on. And that's the important thing in this situation right now. And again, it's not easy. It's not an easy watch. I went to the game yesterday. Obviously, it wasn't a very fun game. The Mets lost. I was able to get my friend's, my Edwin Diaz bobblehead right there. So got my bobblehead, which is always fun. But you know what? I had a lot of coworkers that went to the baseball game, a couple of the Met fans that are coworkers that I hung out with throughout the entire game. So that was fun. We don't get to do that a lot since we work different times. So it's important to, enjoy yourself a little bit, with some drinking and, of course, some baseball. So that's what it is right now when it comes to the New York Mets. It's they're showing Drew Gilbert right now with Binghamton. 290 average, got a home run, 6 RBIs, 357 on base percentage, and over 1,000 OPS. Again, that's one of those guys that I truly believe is going to be playing the outfield for the Mets next year. I think he's going to get an invite to spring training, and he's already raking in AA right now. And I think that's one of the guys that you got to look. Him and Acuna are two guys that I think are going to have every opportunity to make the team next year in 2024. Who knows about others? Who knows about the other guys? Clifford's probably about another year away, but you never know. He might end up in AA by the time the end of the year is. There's a lot of guys that you really have to look at, because I don't have no problem looking at these guys, or at least giving them every opportunity to actually make the team, especially when you see Nimmo playing left field. I know he's coming off the injury, and they don't want him running around in center field like that and all that craziness. I've always said this. I don't think Nimmo is going to be a center fielder for very long, especially with that long-term deal we just gave him. I would not be shocked that the Mets are going to be playing Nimmo. Yeah, probably play him in center field a decent amount, but there's no guarantee that he's not going to be a corner outfielder. I think Nimmo can be an elite corner outfielder. If he's a very good center fielder, he can be an elite corner outfielder, and there's no reason why you can't put him in the corners. There's nothing wrong with that at all. He'd be an elite left fielder or an elite right fielder. He has no arm, so it's pointless. You always want a guy with a really good arm in right field, but I like Nimmo in the corner because I think he can be elite. And in center field, he's very good. But, he's shown a lot of signs this year where he didn't do his job either. Well, CD, you have to be at this point, right? I mean, that's the whole point, right? There's nothing else to look at right now until you get to the offseason and you can make trades and sign free agents. That's all you can look at right now. So if you're not looking at that, then you're not doing your job as a fan, because the games don't matter. I mean, technically you're looking for, I'm not saying you want them to lose, but listen, it's a lot better in this situation. 11-4 with a 3.8. Yeah, he was done with the Mets. That's the problem. Scherzer couldn't pitch in a big game for the Mets. It's simple. Look at his numbers against any big team that he faced when the Mets needed him to win. Go back to last year. Ever since he came back from that oblique injury, he was too more concerned about opening his mouth and not shutting up and making excuses after excuses instead of pitching. You know what's the difference in Texas? He got like 4 reporters that are talking to him, except the 25 that are talking to him. So all the excuses and the nonsense he gave was because he's in New York. So he was less focused on actually pitching than opening his big mouth while the media was there with 30 guys with microphones. And now in Texas, there's about 4 guys that are in front of him. Big difference. And a lot less pressure. A hell of a lot less pressure. And can we calm down just a little bit on Scherzer? He faced the White Sox, the A's, and the Angels, who are falling apart. So let's not act like he's facing the Braves or facing the Dodgers or facing the Orioles. He hasn't faced those teams yet. Yeah, CD, I knew it was going to happen too, but there's no pressure on Scherzer. He's going to Texas. He's in Texas right now where they can care less about their baseball team while the Dallas Cowboys training camp is going on right now and preseason is going on. Trust me, listen to talk radio in Texas. In Dallas. They're not even talking about baseball. It's all about the Cowboys. So when there's no pressure on you and there ain't 45 media guys with microphones in your face every single day, every single start, before and after, it's a lot easier to pitch. Scherzer opened his mouth too much and was more concerned about everything else going around him and not getting along with Justin Verlander and not getting along with other guys. And now when the biggest games that we needed him to pitch in, he sucked. Because I said it to this day. The Boston series was when the Mets decided that they were going to be sellers at the deadline. Because Scherzer was coming into that game where he had the ball in his hand and he could have won the series for the Mets going into that Sunday game where the Mets could have gone on to sweep the Red Sox. No. He gave up batting practice home runs, 5 of them to be exact, every one of them on his slider. Yeah, CD. And where did he win the World Series? And he wasn't even the best pitcher. If it wasn't for Patrick Corbin in Strasburg, he didn't even pitch well in the World Series, if you check his stats. He wasn't very good in that postseason. Again, could we wait until he faces a really good team for everybody to go apeshit? And again, what is the point of having Scherzer if this team was never making a run anyway? But no, CD, how was it a panic move? How was it a panic move when you traded every one of the guys that were big names that you traded were 37-year-olds or older? Scherzer, who couldn't pitch in a big game for the Mets, he didn't win a big game this year for the Mets. And don't give me the Dodger game where he pitched well because the Mets are already on the verge of sweeping. So he saved the sweep. That's all he did. So let's not act like this guy has pitched a big game. Can you name me a big game that he pitched in over the last 7 months? Because I can't remember. Because the biggest games as a Met, he's failed. Yeah, he is a hedge fund owner. Yes. But he also came in and said and warned the players in June and says, hey, guys, I'm not firing Buck. I'm not firing Epler, right? I still believe in you. In June, a month and a half before the deadline, get it together. Make a run and make my decision easier, right? Cohen never said he wasn't going to buy at the deadline, right? He never said. He said if they make a run and they show him that this team is worth going for it, he's going to do it. He gave them an opportunity to make a run. The 15 games before the All-Star break, where they basically faced everybody that was in front of him in a wild card, they were basically 500 during that time. That's not a run. And then 10 days before the deadline, when you had the Red Sox series, the Yankee series, and the National series, that's where it was. That was their opportunity again. But he was never impatient. He actually was smart about it because next year, if you would have brought back the same team and they sucked once again, and Scherzer another year older, Verlander another year older, right? You're expecting these guys to be exactly what they were, 3 years ago? That's the point. Let's see, instead of showing Cohen, they had guts. They caved. Joe, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. Cohen gave them the opportunity a month and a half. It wasn't 5 days. He gave him a month and a half when he had that press conference in June. Do your job. Yeah, okay. And Max cannot pitch in New York. Do you realize that? That's what I keep on saying. You don't understand that. And oh, by the way, as good as we could have pitched, the offense continued to suck. That's the problem. Yeah, a month and a half. And they also had April and May. Or did you forget that there was 2 months before that as well? Those games count already, right? That was when Scherzer decided to use sweat and rosin and made excuses instead of actually just pitching, right? Oh, Verlander, he got hurt in spring training, missed a month. And then it took him all of May to figure out how to pitch again. I'm sorry. There were 6 games. And the problem with the Mets is that there's nobody good in the National League. Look at the teams in front of them. They can't get out of their own way. So the Mets could have easily made a run, but they never did. And this is with a National League wild card that, besides the Phillies, basically, nobody's really that good. And that's the problem. No, I won't revisit it because Verlander already shown he can. But the fact of the matter is, even Verlander pitching well was not turning this team around because the Mets have no bullpen at all. And if you were going to buy at the deadline and you don't make a run, then next year you're bringing in basically the same exact team, all of them a year older. And then when you suck again, now you have less value of those players to potentially make trades if the season don't go well. They had a plan. You don't like it, that's on you. For once, the organization actually had a plan. I'm sorry. The organization had a plan. Just because you didn't like the plan doesn't mean they didn't have a plan. Their plan was simple. They had plan A and plan B. They gave their team 4 months to do their job. They failed at every opportunity, right? When Brandon Nimmo lost sleep after the trade deadline, but it's not impatience. How is it impatient when they choked last year with Scherzer, oh, by the way, right? And all the guys in those lineups couldn't do anything in that Brave series or in the postseason, but you're going to tell me that, oh, they didn't have any time. That's impatient? No, it's not impatient. You have a deadline. That's what a deadline's called. You got to make a decision. How about this? The Angels made a decision, the Yankees made a decision, and the Padres all decided to go for it. How is that working out for those teams right now? How is that working out for those teams? The Angels are basically out of it. The Yankees are falling over themselves right now because they're going to be out of it just very, very soon. And look at the Padres hanging around, what, a game or two better than the Mets right now? So there you go. So the teams that went for it, a couple of them that were around where the Mets were and a few games better than the Mets went for it, and it's a complete disaster because they could have traded people to got back talent, and they did not. And now they're in limbo. There's talk about Bob Melvin getting fired. There's talks about Juan Soto possibly being traded in the offseason. The Yankees don't have a good farm system, and they're the oldest team in baseball now since the Mets traded guys, the older guys. And look at the Angels. They went for it because they're scared shitless. They're going to lose Ohtani, and they thought the only way that this guy's going to stick around is if they make the playoffs and show, look what we can do. And they all failed. So you're going to tell me the Mets made a bad decision? How is that impatient? That's not impatient. They gave them basically 90 games. They didn't do their job. It's on the players and the coaches. They didn't do their job. I'm sorry. There was 45 games from that press conference in June to the trade deadline. The Mets had every opportunity to make a run for a National League wild card where nobody was running away with the wild card. They're an embarrassment. They screwed it up. They all underperformed. And all of them that were shocked that this happened, Cohen warned you and gave you an opportunity to change his mind. You didn't. Nimmo wants to lose sleep after the trade deadline because he can't believe that happened. Why didn't he lose sleep when the Mets were one of the worst teams in baseball in June? How about that? But no, we can't talk about Nimmo, right? What about Pete Alonso? Oh, I got to speak to the owner. Why? You suck just along. You can't from May until the middle of June. Pete Alonso was barely hitting 200. Jeff McNeil was nowhere to be found. Brandon Nimmo was striking out at a higher pace he was last year. Average going down. Walks going down. They couldn't catch a pop-up for a whole month. Losing games. Stupid matters. Mental mistakes. And you're going to tell me this team is ready to turn it around? And then you already hear all the clubhouse issues on top of that. Sorry. The New York Mets were not turning this around this year. And you had to have a plan. Finally, the organization actually has a plan. If you don't like the plan, that's on you. But they had a plan. Nobody's saying it's going to work. We don't know yet. But if they would have stayed pat, you would have been running into the same problems you were next year. Because there's no guarantee that Scherzer's going to be better or worse than he is this year as a Met, not as a Ranger. because it's a lot easier pitching in Texas when the Cowboys are about to play football in 3 weeks. All right? When you got 4 reporters in front of your face in Texas, nobody cares about them. But the 40 media members that have microphones in your face every single day and wondering why you're giving up batting practice sliders to the Boston Red Sox, yeah, it's a big difference. And go back to Scherzer's numbers in the playoffs. He was absolutely terrible when the Nationals won the World Series. If it wasn't for Patrick Corbin and Strasburg, the Nationals never would have won because Scherzer had nothing to do with that. He was terrible in the postseason. I'm sorry, guys. He couldn't pitch in New York. The guy totally was mentally fucked. That's what he was in New York. That's what he was. Because as soon as things starting to turn in the wrong direction and everybody was going against him, what did he do? He opened up his big mouth. He made excuses every single time. Remember the last excuse? Oh, yeah, I pitched well against the Dodgers because, it was muddy and the dirt caked up in my cleat, so it didn't let me pick up my leg as much and help me throw my slider better. Then the next game, he pitched. I was in Boston. He was pitching against Boston. The Mets gave him a lead. You know what he did? Choked it away with 5 home runs in that game, and every one of them were off a hanging slider. Sorry. He had opportunities to help this team. And oh, by the way, last time I checked, Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer had no trade clauses. If they really wanted to stay and tell the owner, listen, I want to be here. I want to turn this around with this team. They could have said no to the trades. Why didn't they? It was in their court. But it wasn't impatient. I'm sorry. Scherzer acts like he's pitching like he was 10 years ago. He wasn't. If you listen to him talk, at least Justin Verlander said, yeah, I sucked. I didn't help this team. Scherzer never said that. All Scherzer wanted to do is blame everybody else. No, he didn't. He told them, listen, this is what we're going to do. If you don't want to be here, that's on you. Yeah, again, he pitched extremely well early on. And then he had that oblique issue. He came back in 6 weeks, pitched okay. And then all of a sudden, the real pressure came on because the big games, when you needed those games, he was nowhere to be found. He was great. I didn't say earlier in the season. But it was a lot easier when the love affair of Max Scherzer was going around. Max Scherzer can do no wrong to Met fans, right? Everybody was in love with Max Scherzer, right? It's easy when there's no pressure on you, because how was there pressure on you when everybody loved you, right? Nobody was questioning your skills or your demeanor or your stuff. But as soon as it started to get questioned, he folded like a cheap suit. The guy had basically a 4 ERA with the Mets this year. He wasn't good. And he had many opportunities to turn it around. And he did it. And Boston was an eye-opener. That's not a great team over there. Sorry, Cohen had a plan. You don't like the plan, that's on you. You don't have to like the plan. And nobody's telling you that this plan's going to work. But doing nothing, like, I don't know, CD, what did you want the Mets to do at the deadline? Because they weren't getting another bat. Because they weren't trading prospects. So what were you going to do at the deadline? I'm just curious. Because what were you expecting? To get Ohtani? Okay, CD, but he pitched against the White Sox, who depleted their team at the deadline. He pitched against the Oakland A's, that are the worst team in baseball. Oh, and I forgot. He pitched against the Angels, who were basically falling apart at the realm after they bought at the deadline. But again, okay, so who are you selling? Pham and Canna. 2 guys that were actually playing decent for your team. So Pham, who was one of your best hitters for a month and a half, you're going to trade him away? And then what? Who are you going to throw out there? And then who's your left fielder? Ortega now? No. He makes excuses. We don't make excuses. We know he sucks. I'm sorry. Why wasn't he good all year? He might have had 3-4 good starts this season. And I'm being generous. The best start of the season was against the Dodgers. And that ended up being no pressure on him because the Mets needed to win that series, and that series is basically done once the Dodgers took the first 2 games of the series. And then the next game, you would think the Dodgers have a better offense than the Boston Red Sox. So shouldn't he have been better against Boston than the Dodgers? Oh, I guess not. Yeah, building a rotation is tough. But the same rotation that everybody loved last year, the Mets built that from scratch. There was nobody in the rotation except for DeGrom. Do we all forget that? Right? Taijuan Walker, Bassett. Do we forget? Scherzer was here, right? We all got those guys. We had no rotation. Did we forget? We act like we didn't sign or make trades for those pitchers. And we act like the Mets are not allowed to make any free agent signings or trades to build a rotation. At the moment, when the offseason happens, at the moment, you're going to have Quintana and Senga. That's a good start. Quintana can easily be a 4 or 5. No problem. He's a solid pitcher. Senga's shown he's been extremely good for you. Yamamoto, who is one of the best Japanese, he's better than Senga, and he's 24 years old. The Mets are favorites to land him. And then you got guys like Urias, and then you got guys like Giolito. You got a lot of pitchers that you can put as your number 3, 4, 5. Again, do you look at the rotations around baseball? Can you tell me anyone that's really damn good? That's dominant? Because the Mets tried it. Yeah, because they were hurt. When Quintana came back and Verlander finally figured it out, Scherzer was still going through his excuses. And you had like a week and a half before the deadline. What were they supposed to do? Let's just sell Pham and sell Canna, the 2 guys that were actually part of your outfield. And the Mets had no other outfield because Marte's been out. And then Nimmo can't play center field anymore magically. So now he's a left fielder. So now who's going to play center field? Probably Ortega. So you said sell a little bit. No, that's a half-assed plan that the Mets have been doing for the last couple of years. Other regimes, right? 2019. They should have traded Zach Wheeler. No, they got Marcus Stroman. Everybody loved it because they were, wow, we got Stroman for an extra year. They could just sign Wheeler and look at that rotation. No, they got Stroman basically to replace Wheeler. How did that one work out? Not so well. 2021, traded Pete Crow Armstrong for Javier Baez. They half-assed that deadline. How did that 2021 season work out? So every time they half-assed the plan, it bit them in the ass. Now that they had a definitive plan, you're mad. Makes no sense. Yeah, I think Yamamoto is going to be there because I don't think anybody's going to pay more than the Mets. So, Mets Pirates, here we go, guys. Let me just change it over to everybody's viewing pleasure. Give me a second. All right, guys, so I'm going to turn up the volume so you guys can hear it. All right, so game's about to happen. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you can hear it.
How many heartbeats? We're only allotted so many in our lifetime. Well, if you have a slow heartbeat, then you don't spend as many per minute. Don McGill last start was terrific for the first 3 innings against the Braves, and then his stuff began to back up, and that's been the case for him in too many starts this year. Brian Hayes leads off for the Pirates. First pitch today. It's a fastball away for ball 1, and we're underway. Hayes 4 for 9 in this series, 10 for 22 against the Mets this year.
There goes my buddy.
He didn't much against anybody else, but against the Mets, he has been prolific. Just a .297 on base percentage, and yet he's been leading off a lot lately. And he quickly is at the cap 2-0. Ryan Reynolds on deck, and then Andrew McCutcheon against McGill, who recently turned 28 years old. His third start since coming back from a stint in the minor leagues. He just fouls back the fastball. It's 2-1.
The interesting delivery windup from McGill kind of starts like he's going to do a windup and then kind of stops like he's in a stretch, and then he delivers.
Trying to simplify his motion, trying to...
Exactly. They never gave him an offer. Getting Stroman in 2019 made sense because if you would have signed Wheeler, it would have been perfect. You would have had a really good rotation with DeGrom coming back. It was perfect.
10 in this series, he turned that fastball around and rifled it into center field.
He likes net pitching.
CD, but again, just because nobody's done it before doesn't mean it's a wrong decision. That's your problem. You just say, oh, nobody's ever done it before. Okay. Who cares? The point of the matter is they needed to do it because next year everybody's older. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Again, who cares? It doesn't matter if it's ever been done before. That doesn't mean it's not going to work. And I guarantee you, if the Mets turn this around this quickly by doing what they did at the deadline, watch how many teams replicate what the Mets did. Yeah, it makes no damn sense. Why are they so bad? But it wasn't irrational. That's your problem. You're emotionally challenged with this situation. You don't like the plan, so you think it's wrong. That's the problem. So if it's not wrong, then it's right. You can't make up your mind. If it's not wrong, then what is it? Because in 2019 and 2021, they half-assed the deadline, and it cost them. In 2019, it cost them because getting Stroman was stupid because they didn't keep Wheeler. So you hurt your rotation anyway. And then on top of that, in 2021, everybody was like, oh, you got to go get a bat. And they traded Pete Crow-Armstrong for Javier Baez for a team that wasn't going anywhere. But it wasn't impatient. The fact of the matter is they had to make that decision because if it happened next year, if this happened again next year, you got guys on a lower contract now. You got 1-year deals on this team. You weren't able to get rid of Robinson because he wouldn't be on the team. Or maybe you would have signed him next year. That was possible. But you're going to have another year older of Verlander. And if Verlander finally catches up age-wise, then what you do? So you suck, and you got these guys with no value. Okay, CD, but this is not about a 9-to-5 job. This is baseball. Just because nobody's done it before doesn't mean it's not right. I'm sorry. You don't like the plan, so you're going to fuss and moan, and I don't care if you've been a Mets fan for 50 years or 60 years. The fact of the matter is you should know better by being that experience as a fan, knowing that how many times this team half-assed the deadline and never had a plan. They had a plan. You don't like it? That's fine. That's your opinion. But don't make it seem like it's the worst thing in the world. You just said it's not wrong. It was irrational. No, it wasn't. Irrational is not having a plan. The Mets had a plan. You don't like it. That's okay. Yeah, Hayes sucks everywhere else, but when he faces the Mets, he hits well. Don't make no sense. All right, then. So you're arguing about nothing. Irrational means they didn't have a plan. They had a plan, and they went with it. That's not irrational. Irrational is not knowing what the hell you're doing. You know what's irrational? What the Yankees, Padres, and Angels did. Because they're going to end up playing golf with the Mets when the postseason starts. Yeah, but see, the point is that you're talking about impatience. That's not impatient. What were they supposed to do? You said, oh, they should sell a little bit. Pham was one of our best hitters in the lineup over the last 2 months. You wanted to trade him? So if you trade him, The Mets have no outfielder as it is. Let's trade Cano. Okay, great. Who's playing the outfield? Nimmo and who? The guys you've been seeing. Ortega, Stewart. That's your guys. So you were screwed either way. And there's no guarantee that Scherzer was going to pitch well because he wasn't facing the White Sox or the A's or the Angels. He would have been facing the Braves, who he can't beat, by the way. No, it's not because of the – okay, but again, we go back to it. The players had an opportunity to say no to the trades. They had no trade clauses. They didn't. The decision for Cohen, if Scherzer and Verlander both said, I want to be here and stay, that means the Mets had nobody else to trade. That's why. That isn't impatient because Justin Verlander had an opportunity to stay here. This wasn't just on Cohen. Cohen gave him an ultimatum. You want to stay and figure this thing out, or you want to leave and jump ship? They jumped ship. They didn't have to leave.
Very young Pittsburgh team. They got off to a great start this year. They were 20-9 at the start of the year, but things quickly went the other way. Much as with the Mets, they found themselves.
You know what you should be more mad, CD, that the Mets didn't go for it like the Rangers did this year at the deadline in 2022, because they basically revamped their entire rotation. And the Mets basically done, you know what they did? A half-ass job. So when you do a half-ass job, you're going to get half-ass results. But CD, they weren't backed into a corner. They could have stayed if they wanted to. They did not want to stay here. And I don't think Scherzer ever wanted to be a Met. And Justin Verlander took the easy way out and went back to the place he was comfortable in. Very simple. And then on top of that, the clubhouse was a complete disaster and toxic. And a big reason, and you heard all the stories, was that Verlander was walking around like a diva, didn't get along with a lot of people, couldn't stand Scherzer, and Scherzer was making all the excuses under the book. So every time he pitched well, it was all because of him. But when he pitched bad, it was everybody else's fault. That's a problem.
Well, they went up and signed Reynolds to a long-term contract, something very much out of character for ownership.
Well, JL, that's the biggest problem. And that's why I tried to talk to everybody that the Mets had opportunities. Yeah, I doubt it. You know, do we not notice what goes on in baseball every year? Usually the best team usually one of the best teams, there's one or two teams that get knocked out every year. And it's not like the Braves have great pitching. Their pitching has been injured. They haven't been great. Their bullpen's okay, but it's not there. If they get shut down hitting-wise, and let's be honest, the Braves have been winning all their games. They've been playing extremely well. We all know that. One of the best team in baseball. But if you shut down their hitting, which is it's not easy to do, but if you do, they're going to have a hard time keeping the team that they're facing not scoring. That's the other problem too. Raleigh, I agree with you. Their offense is insane. But we've seen great offensive get shut down in the playoffs every year. Because you know why? When you face 3 pitches in a row that are better than the guys you usually face during the season, things can change, right? The Braves were better than the Phillies last year. What happened? The Padres weren't even they couldn't even sniff the Dodgers. They couldn't beat the Dodgers at all in the regular season. Why didn't they beat them? 3 of the best teams in baseball were out before the NLCS. Yeah, the Braves' weakness is starting pitching. Isn't that a big deal? And I'm not saying the offense can't carry them, but there's no guarantee that they won't get shut down either. We see it every year in the playoffs. Every year. The Dodgers are the favorites every year, it seems like. Yet, all of a sudden, they forget how to hit when the postseason comes around. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Steven, true. But I get that. But also, during the season, you face a lot of bad pitching as well. When you get into a short series, you're facing the best of the best. Their best pitchers you're going to be facing. The difference with the Braves is that their offense can take them to a World Series championship. But that doesn't mean they can't get shut down. It's you just never know. It's a crapshoot, the playoffs now. It's not like it used to be in like the 90s when usually the best teams always found a way to make the World Series. Now it's just getting hot at the right time. And you know what? The Braves have been coasting for 3 months now? 2 months now? You know, that can be dangerous. And remember, guys, the best teams in the playoffs get the bye. And that's hurt teams as well. It hurt the Braves last year, in my opinion. And that's another reason why, Steven, is the big reason why they had 20 different pitchers is because they built up a ton of depth in their farm system, which the Mets are trying to do. Hi, Steven. You know, there's intangibles here of what the Mets are trying to do. And if you look at the Braves, and you got to remember, when the Nationals were winning the divisions, you know, year after year, what was it, in the 2010s, and the Braves weren't very good, what were the Braves doing? You think they were just losing on purpose just for the hell of it? No. They were building draft picks. They were making the draft picks. And then when it came time to like 2017, 2018, that's when they started to bring up all these guys. For the years they weren't doing well and getting big draft picks and drafting right. The Mets actually did that in a year and a half, unlike teams that like the Braves or the Dodgers, teams like that. It takes you 3, 4, 5 years to build up a farm system. The Mets did it in a year and a half. And that was because of Cohen's money. He didn't have to pocket that money. He could have said, no, might as well go for it. Because if you know, we all know the Mets weren't going to make a run this year. If you believe that, you haven't been paying attention. Yeah, Steven, I don't think that's true anymore in baseball. Honestly, I don't think so. Look at the World Series. One starting pitcher went 7 innings in the World Series last year. One. Most of them pitched 5 innings. So starting pitching isn't as important. Because I can tell you the Mets had one of the best rotations last year. How did that help them? Didn't help them at all. No, you know why? Because they would never sign those pitchers for that type of contract. That's why. Besides Charlie Morton, who have they signed? Every one of them are farmhands.
Just 12 RBI from 100. Another 100 RBI season.
JL is possible, right? You didn't have an outfield in 2021 until you did, right? and it took you to a World Series championship, right? That's why it's very unpredictable now, the postseason, right? You know, last year it was basically the Astros. I mean, they were pitching okay, but they didn't really face anybody that was tough in the postseason until they got to the World Series. And the Phillies ended up being no match because once the Phillies actually faced really good pitching, they fell apart. And the Houston didn't really have that good of pitching. Again, one of their pitchers went 7 innings. Yeah, but Fried hasn't been good in the playoffs, Todd. Well, Dwayne, I mean, JL can tell you this. Yeah, they're spoiled, but they're spoiled and also were very upset before 2021 because they were winning 20,000 division titles and nothing to show for it for years. You know, let's not act like the Braves before 2021. Last time they won is 95. That was a long time ago. Like it's not like they won in 2006. You know, I think we're too focused on what we think wins the World Series, but every year it's always something different, right? The Phillies basically rode their offense to the World Series. You know why? Because the Phillies basically the entire year, the Mets didn't score, and the Phillies the entire season had one of the worst defense in baseball. They had one of the worst bullpens in baseball. What happened? They started to play a little bit better defense. They started to pitch a little bit better, but their offense, you know what they led the league last year in solo home runs. They could not get on base. So when they hit those home runs, which they hit a ton of, it was a lot of solo home runs. You know what was the difference in the playoffs? They actually got those guys on and hitting home runs. It's little things like that that can jumpstart a team in a playoffs. So we got to remember that as well. Yeah, like the Cowboys, you're right. And again, I give a ton of respect for what the Braves did, because unlike my Mets in 2022, they know that they had needs at the deadline in 2021. Their outfield was non-existent after Acuna, and then Ozuna was having issues. They had no outfield. They knew their needs, and they got it. Nobody thought Duvall, Rosario, and Soler were going to be the three guys that were basically so important in their World Series run. You would have been an idiot to think that. But sometimes you get the right guys, and it was perfect for them. Soler was the World Series MVP. If anybody ever betted that, they would be a millionaire right now. It's impressive. And that's why I got mad last year about the Mets, because you never take a year like the Mets were having last year for granted, especially the New York Mets, who have them once every 5 years, it seems, or 10 years. You don't take those years for granted, and I felt like the front office, specifically Billy Epler, took it for granted. Oh, we'll be back next year, and look what happened. You know, you got to look at it that way, because the Mets half-assed the deadline, and half-assed deadlines give you half-assed results. Because the Mets could have got a solid, I would say, even if it was a middle-of-the-road outfielder, especially when Marte went down, right? You could have got an extra bench piece. You could have got better DH a batter here instead of Vogelback and Ruff.
It's a lot of standing around if you're a defender. Rodriguez smacks one toward the hole, and he's got a base hit. So Eddie Rodriguez, the former Met farmhand.
You know, the Mets shouldn't have been one of the, play a little under 500 baseball in September only because Marte didn't go down. But you know what happened? Marte was the spark plug the entire year for this offense. We realized it in September. But the Mets at the deadline could have done more. They weren't willing to give prospects up. And you know the big reason why? Because their farm system was garbage. It's extremely top heavy, so if they were going to give away a prospect or two, it was going to hurt their farm system even more. And again, you can't forecast this year where you're going to be a top 10 farm system in baseball because of the trades you made. You can't forecast that. You can't predict that. So you basically, robbing Peter to pay Paul in this situation. So I think the Mets should have done it, because you never take a year like that for granted, because maybe that great bullpen arm you got at the deadline could have made all the difference in the world. You never know. Maybe instead of getting Vogelback and use Holdeman for a guy like JD Martinez or another bat, whoever might have been better, because anybody could have been better than those two idiots. No, well, Todd, again, you can't forecast what happened in September at the deadline. But what I'm saying is that we knew the needs of this team. This team needed a competent DH. We didn't need a platoon, because platoons don't work. I think we realize that. I think we have that understanding. Unlike the Mets, they keep on doing platoons. Platoons don't work. Give me one batter, I don't care if you're lefty or righty, who can hit both sides, both pitchers, righty or lefty, Give me somebody that's 260 and 15 to 20 home runs or a little bit more. I'm sick of these guys that can only hit a right-hander or hit a left-hander. It does not work. And it bit the Mets in the ass last year.
Great majority of fastball made their secondary.
They didn't go like the Rangers. They needed rotation help. They made a ton of moves. Is it going to work? Time will tell. But they knew what they needed and they got it. The Mets didn't get their needs. They got Michael Givens, who was not terrible for us, but we could have got better. And it might have helped the bullpen along the way, especially in a couple of games in September when our bullpen was not doing well. I mean, it's simple things. At the deadline, especially when you're one of the best teams in baseball, get your needs because you don't know when you're going to be back there again. They didn't learn their lesson. They took it for granted because they just assumed they would be back next year, or at least in the playoffs. And it bit them in the ass. Yeah, but again, were you expecting Darren Ruff or Vogelback or Givens to take the next step to help this team? Nobody believed that at all. At all. It was a disappointing deadline. Yet you see teams every year at the deadline who are going for it get their needs. And it's frustrating because the Mets could have done that and they didn't. I know, easy.
Rivas drops that back shoulder. He's a low ball hitter. Gets under the pitch, has trouble with the pitch up in the strike zone. From what I've seen this series.
Yeah, those are, and look, you need it again. It just says it, right? They needed what they needed. They got. Are they great guys? No, but they're solid, right? Look what Lopez did against the Mets. Handon Johnson's going to help that bullpen. Michael, I know. And the fact of the matter is, guys like Beatty, guys like Vientos, guys you could have used in deals to get something, anything you wanted. Now their value's basically in the toilet. I don't care what Beatty's doing in AAA. Don't give me AAA numbers, please. Because as soon as he goes back down, he figures out how to hit again. Yeah, because he can hit AAA pitching. You know what he can't do right now? Hit Major League pitching. That's the difference. Steven, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know what's going on with that. I really don't. Yeah. Great. Perfect time to be prospect huggers.
Strikeout for McGill, that's the first out of the inning. Everybody has to be a champion at something. Yes. We all have our different skills. I was known to down a few after every game. But you work the stars during the game as well. Yes. So you should have your game stars on one side and your post-game stars on the other. In-game are the only ones that matter. Here's the number 9 hitter, Oblique Williams, the shortstop. Making his 16th start at the big leagues, and he holds a swing on a slider ball. And that was, getting back to that the uniforms, the various uniforms that the Pirates had. They were big guys. Stargell was big. Dave Parker, Bob Robertson. They were all big. Richie Zisk. They were intimidating in those uniforms. Yes, but they also looked a little bit like bumblebees. They did. That's why I didn't like the uniform. So when I was with the Tulsa Oilers, our road uniform one year was black.
Well, Rocky, I don't know how you can say that because Joe Torre never won nothing. Before the Yankees went on their dynasty, Brian Cashman never won nothing. Right? What did the Braves GM win or manager win prior to them winning, right? Dusty Baker, who everybody said is a bad manager because what he's failed to do in the playoffs and made terrible decisions. Now he's a great manager. I'm sick of people saying, "Oh, it's because they didn't win." There's GMs and managers who've never won, who've won. So there's a lot of good GMs and good managers that never won World Series.
Peterson 3 2/3 last night, and we got a piece of that fastball. I like though that the Pirates.
Yeah, and Michael, that's what people don't understand either. People think, oh, we just got prospects. Prospects might not work out, but you know what prospects do? Can get you established players. You know what? I keep on bringing it up. I'm fully confident that the Milwaukee Brewers are going to trade Corbin Burns this offseason. Guess what the Mets have now? A plethora of prospects. And who's going to be our president of baseball operations most likely? David Stearns. Where is he working? Milwaukee Brewers. So, and it should be 2-6-4-3 double play, and the Mets get out of the inning. Tyler McGill gets out of the inning with a double play. Well, Dwayne, did we forget? Wasn't Chris Bassett a good trade? That wasn't a good trade. Brooks Raley, that wasn't a good trade. Now, let's not act like Billy Epler made a ton of trades here. Right? I don't think Michael Givens was enough at the last year for bullpen, but he was actually decent. If you look at his numbers, he was actually okay. He was better than expected, to be honest. I mean, how many trades did Epler make? That was actually a really good signing with Chris Bassett. I mean, we came to realize that Chris Bassett in big games and when the pressure's actually on, told you before Game 3 of the wild card series that he can't handle New York. He can't handle the pressure. He said it. He basically mentally checked out. He said it before that in that press conference before the game, the day before the game. All right, Dwayne, but again, Michael Givens wasn't a bad trade. Wasn't a bad trade. The problem was it needed to do more. But again, the Mets didn't have the prospects to get more of what they wanted, or at least what they were willing to give up. Right? The Mets didn't want to trade Mauricio. They didn't want to trade Beatty. They didn't want to trade Alex Ramirez. Clearly, they didn't want to trade Francisco Alvarez. They didn't want to trade Jet Williams or Kevin Parada. Well, if you're not going to trade 7 out of your top 10, what do you think you're going to get? Yeah, Rocky, I'm telling you guys right now. Now, again, once the president of baseball operations comes in, Billy Epler is going to be basically getting the guy his coffee. Oh, I'll tell you right now, he's getting Yamamoto. I'm telling you that right now. Now, again, this guy is much better than Kodai Senga. And Senga's been pretty good this year, getting better by every start. You know, you bring in Yamamoto, which all signs are the Mets are not going to get outbid by anybody to get him. So now you'll have Yamamoto, Senga, and Quintana. So you got to fill 2 spots in your starting 5. Obviously, you're going to need depth, of course. But there's guys out there. There's trade. You could trade for Corbin Burns, which I think that's a very big possibility because he's already he wanted to get traded this offseason when he lost his arbitration and was pissed off with the organization, and he's even more pissed off now with the organization because he's going to get his last arbitration this offseason, and he's probably going to lose it again and be even more pissed. And David Stearns, who is looking like going to be the Mets president of baseball operations, knows every detail of that situation. And the Mets and the Brewers have a good relationship when it comes to having conversations about trades. They've had a good communication line for a while. It goes back years.
It's all about the parents having a good time and introducing the child to life at the ballpark. And then when they get a little
so if the Mets sign Yamamoto and trade for Burns, now you got Senga, Yamamoto, Burns, and Quintana. I don't know, but that's not bad. And again, look at the National League, guys. Can you name me a starting rotation that you're scared of? Now, there might be solid pitchers, but I'd rather have solid pitchers because both times the Mets had opportunities this year and last year with rotations that everybody considered one of the best rotations in baseball. It didn't help them at all. So maybe you need solid starters that can give you 6 innings and good starts almost every time out and give your team a chance to win. Hey, listen, you see what Senga could do once he got comfortable. Now, Yamamoto is much younger, and he's already been he's putting up numbers that Ohtani was putting up pitching in Japan. He's that good. And he was younger. He's younger than Ohtani, and he's younger than Senga.
Very artistic. He got a little league bat and sawed it off and then put it on the lathe and made it so it was comfortable in our hands.
Yeah, it was a shot. I was at the game yesterday, so I actually saw it.
28-inch bat for a little league. Remember that? It was 28 inches. That was too big for a 6-year-old. Yeah.
Sometimes just getting prospects is not just about, we're going to count on prospects to come through. No, it's not just about that. Now the Mets have enough depth where they can get rid of a few pieces to make that big trade. That's the difference. So if you have to give up 2 top 10 prospects, it's not really hurting your farm like it would have last year. That's the problem. Well, yeah, but why can't Senga be that? He's been the Mets' best pitcher all year. I'm not saying he will, but why can't, again, if it's a Mets trade for Corbin Burns, you got, that's gone. Stewart with another home run. Hey, solo home run for DJ Stewart. Hey, and he has a ton of home runs in the minors too. This is the guy. That's why when people are like, why do you want to see DJ Stewart? Why? Because this guy shows he has power. That's a guy that you can have on your bench that you might need late in the game. Says, hey, pinch hit. Hey, maybe you can get a chance to be our DH. You never know. I'm not saying he's going to be a great player. Todd, I believe he did. I think he was teammates with Senga at one point and Yamamoto. Yeah. That's going to be a double. That's fine, Dwayne, but if he's pitching well, there's no reason why I expect Cohen to let him go. This is not the Wilpons who let Wheeler go. Well, Rocky, it's not. Epler's not watching these guys. You got to rely on the scouts. GMs rely on their scouts. And again, remember, guys, if you remember back to the WBC, Steve Cohen and Billy Epler were in Japan when Japan was playing their qualifying games. So you don't think for a second that they scouted and talked to Yamamoto and probably even spoke to Ohtani, even though they probably weren't supposed to? I still believe this, and it's quiet. And when things are quiet, that's when the Mets pounce. If you noticed, the Lindor trade, the Chris Bassett trade, the Marte Canna Escobar signings last year, the Max Scherzer signing, all those basically came out of nowhere, right? You heard that there was a little bit of interest, all of a sudden, boom, deal done. We all knew that right away. It just came out of nowhere. So when things are quiet on a front, when it comes to the Mets, when it comes to a particular player, watch out for that. Keep your eyes on that. Yeah, of course they are, Joe. Like, if anybody believed that the Mets weren't, and then when people took Steve Cohen's comments well overboard, that, we're not going to have a star-studded team. Like, okay, how many stars do we have now? So if he gets Ohtani, there's your star-studded guy, right? I'm telling you guys. I'm sorry. If you don't expect Steve Cohen's going to make the biggest offer to Shohei Ohtani. It's going to be up to Ohtani if he's going to take it. And again, if Cohen gives the biggest offer, there's nothing the Mets can do. You can't put a gun to his head and says be a Met. Yeah, exactly. Right? Scherzer, number one, didn't want to be a Met. He even said it in his interview prior to signing with the Mets that he preferred to stay on the West Coast. He also said, and then on top of that, what happened? Right? Cohen got in the room with Scherzer and says, "What is it going to take for you to come to New York?" Scherzer says an extra year because the Dodgers will offer him 2 years for similar money. Scherzer says, "I want the third year." Cohen says, "No problem." Well, Joe, that's what I took it as. I took it as we're not going to sign over the hill 40-year-olds and give them $50 million. Yeah, Rocky, and listen, and again, people continue to not look at Billy Epler here. Billy Epler has great relationships with the Japanese players. And remember, who thought that Shohei Ohtani was going to the Angels, of all places? And again, if you look at the interview that Shohei Ohtani gave a couple of years ago, when he first signed with the Angels, they asked him, "Why did you sign with the Angels?" Because other teams were giving him more money. He says the big reason why, because Billy Epler was the only executive from any baseball team to come to Japan, meet my family, and sit down and talk with us. That goes a long way with these Japanese players. Respect goes a long way with these guys. Senga said the same thing. Billy Epler went to Japan to speak with Senga, sit down with him, have a conversation. That he has great relationships with these Japanese players. Well, you know what, Ethan? I'd rather have the expectations will be lower because that would be the biggest news and biggest surprise for everybody. Because if every time there's a move made by Steve Cohen, right? The Carlos Correa, I know that didn't work out at the end, but it was overnight. Half the people were sleeping when it went down, right? I was actually at work when I was listening to WFAN and they said the Mets just stole Carlos Correa from the Giants after they had a little contract dispute. What? Came out of nowhere. Yeah, exactly, Joe. People don't look into those stories more. And they kill Epler. Oh, well how do you think Senga happened? Right? We kill Epler, but you can kill Epler for a lot of things, but he's had he had 2 great drafts. Oh, a balk. Second and third, 2 outs for the Mets. Guys, you got to remember, he signed Senga. He traded for Bassett. Cohen signed Scherzer, but still. Yeah, everybody wanted. Remember, the Mets were all in on Kevin Gausman. Kevin Gausman took less money to go to the Blue Jays. That's been well documented. And I don't understand. I don't understand what people wanted, because there is. Who did you want that the Mets did not get? That's what I'm curious about. You could talk about JD Martinez. Yeah, that could have been a thing. Yeah, that's understandable. But they also brought in Tommy Pham that nobody cared for. And then he was one of our best hitters for like a month and a half. Basically carried this team. So, it's funny to me, like, people kill Billy Epler. Like, yeah, he did. But again, he took less money to go to Toronto. It wasn't the Mets not offering him more. You can't do nothing if you're the Mets if you offer them more.
Takes outside ball for us, and he walks for the second time. That's up the bases loaded for Lindor.
You know, remember a couple of years ago when George Springer was a free agent, Sandy Alderson didn't want to give him that extra year. So where did he go? To Toronto. That was on Sandy Alderson.
Oh, yeah. So it's all he can do.
Yeah, I think Correa would have been better, but again, I can't kill the Mets. Oh, another ball. Oh, that was the same. Sorry, guys. I was looking at something else. I'm sorry. It was a replay. Yeah, again, exactly, Christian. And you got to remember, these Japanese players, when it comes to respect, they take that to a whole new level. And when somebody shows them respect, again, nobody thought that Shohei Ohtani was going to the Angels. Remember, that happened really quickly, right? It was the Dodgers. It was the Mariners. It was the Yankees, right? He didn't want to come to the East Coast when he first came to Japan, right? I don't believe that now one bit, that he doesn't want to come to the East Coast. I think coming to a new country, being closer to home, feels a lot better when you're not really established as a ball player yet. Now that he's one of the best players in baseball, I don't think he really cares where he goes. I mean, yes, he might prefer the West Coast, but what if Steve Cohen offers $75 to $100 million more? Is he really going to say no to that? That's going to be very hard for him to say no. So Lindor is up with the bases loaded, 2 outs in the bottom of the second, 1-0 Mets.
3 grand slams this year. Lindor holds one of them. It was back in April in Oakland.
Joe, that's fine too, but he's not the only one. But again, that's out of the Mets' hands as well. Oh, yeah. That's a base hit. That should be 2 runs. Let's see. And that's another run. 3-0 Mets. Yeah, and again, guys, I mean, if the Mets didn't sell at the deadline, they would have not done very much at all to bring in players. I truly believe that. I think they would have got maybe a bullpen arm or 2. I don't think they were going to do much more. Because if they didn't sell, their farm system would be not as good. So it would be harder to give up prospects. So they would have got a couple of bullpen arms. Would that have changed everything? What if they would have ended up being like the Angels and the Yankees right now? And oh, by the way, the Yankees are 6.5 out. The Mets are what, 8.5 out? It's crazy. I'm happy with it, Joe. I'm really happy with it. Because now it gives us that bullet in the chamber to make a trade this offseason for anybody we really need. All right, that should end the inning. And it does. Mets take a 3-0 lead in going to the top of the third. And listen, yeah, I don't believe, but who's he going to go to? You know, the Mariners, maybe, possibly. I know that was a big thing in Seattle when the All-Star game was there. Is he going to stay with the Angels? I don't think the Angels are going to have the biggest offer. Now, if Ohtani is comfortable there, I have no problem with him staying there. But he's got to tell the GM, listen, or the Giants, it's not a bad idea either. You know, the Giants were willing to spend money. You know, they went after Judge. They almost signed Correa. You know, they lost out on all the big free agents, not really any fault of their own. But, I mean, they could have actually had Correa and Aaron Judge. They ended up with Jock Peterson and Michael Conforto. Again, they're in a playoff spot, so it's not so bad, right? So, I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I understand it might not look good for the Mets or the Dodgers, but I think that's all smoke and mirrors, Christian, to be honest with you. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. Ohtani's not going to play his hand here. He's not going to play his hand. So, once again, guys, if you're just tuning in, I got my Edwin Diaz bobblehead yesterday. The little trumpet. It's pretty cool. It's actually really nice, actually. Really nice. And I might have another one coming soon that I traded with another person, the Francisco Lindor bobblehead with the grass and all that. I had an extra one, so I traded it because I wanted to get an extra Edwin Diaz one. So once I get another Edwin Diaz one, I'll probably do a giveaway. So yeah, I know. Diaz is throwing off the mound. Listen, I say it as this: if Edwin Diaz is 100%, I want to see what he looks like in September. I'm not saying to blow blow him out, but let's see what he does, because I'm going to be very scared going into spring training, not knowing if Diaz. Remember, Diaz hasn't pitched in basically. If he doesn't pitch this year and just throws off the mound or bullpens, but not in an actual game, how confident can you be going into next year that everything's just going to be okay? I'd rather see him a couple of games. And Brian Hayes once again. I don't know. Maybe the Mets should trade for Brian Hayes because he always hits at Citi Field.
Started in Pittsburgh earlier this year.
I don't think the Mets are going to be stupid. If they don't believe, if the doctors say he's not 100%, I don't think the Mets are going to put him out there. If the doctors say he's 100%, why wouldn't you just put him on the mound a couple of times in September? You got to see if that leg can hold up, because what you can't do is go into spring training and that leg doesn't hold up on the mound, and then what? That knee, what happens then? So you waited all off season where you couldn't make. You're not gonna get another closer, right? He gets hurt in spring training. Now what? Now you don't have a closer again. I want to see him jump off the mound. I want to see him running around, getting a bunt and picking it up and throwing it first. I want to see those things, because you can't wait until spring training for his first live action, and that knee doesn't hold up during regular baseball activity during games. Because if it happens in spring training, you're really screwed, because the offseason's over. Well, Barbara, it's not about being good or not. That's a shot. That might be gone. And Brian Reynolds hits a 2-run homer. 3-2 Mets.
Showing off his awful power. I did not think that he hit that. I thought it was going to be a fly ball. 14 fastball.
I think it's his left knee. So yeah, it's his plant foot. And again, that takes a ton of pressure. Doing that over and over again. Jumping off the mound to get a bunt or get a slowly hit ground ball. I want to see all that. You can't wait until spring training to see that, because if that knee doesn't hold up, there's not much time to pivot. Again, the Mets are in a bad spot after the WBC, because there's only 2 weeks until the start of the season. There wasn't much out there to pick up. So the Mets were between a rock and a hard place, because this didn't happen during the offseason where you could still make moves. Well, easy. Again, people forget that the big reason why the Mets were so good last year, because when McGill and Peterson stepped in for Scherzer and DeGrom, they were pretty damn good. And that was a big difference, because the depth that we had actually pitched well. This year, when Peterson and McGill got the opportunities because of injury, they didn't pitch well. It's a big difference. It was the right knee, so that's his push-off, which is another reason why you got to see him do it on the mound, in-game activity, not just a bullpen session. He's also got to get through the mental hurdle as well. I hope not.
That's his swing. That's what he does. His feet were this far apart, too, if you notice. He squatted down. So I always felt too wide apart. How do you rotate
always the wiry guys like Kingman who were wiry and big, and they were able to rotate their hips.
But think about Bagwell and how he used to sit down, but he could get to the high.
Yes, he was very strong. Very, very strong. So there's no set rule. It's all about results, as we say up here.
Swinsky walked his first time up and a half swing, and he went around on a low fastball. It's 1-1. So this is kind of amazing. Brian Reynolds, his 18th home run of the year, the 92nd home run of his career. The first time he has ever hit a home run on a 0-2 pitch. Oh, really? Wow. First for everything. That's an old-fashioned look right there. Oh, wow. That's something out of American Gothic.
Mr. Green James. He was tall and slender.
Money Rabbit.
Well, Todd, I don't agree with that at all. I want to see him go in. I can't wait till after the offseason to see him in spring training and pray that knee holds up in game activity. Because if it doesn't and you're in spring training, guess what? And the knee causes issues, or he's not pitching as well as he did last year because of that knee not being the same as his push-off leg. Guess what? You're in trouble. You can't wait for that moment. If he's 100%, you bring him back. It has nothing to do with wins or losses. It has to see what you have in front of you. You got to know that. You can't go into the spring, you can't go into the offseason saying, oh, Diaz is going to be fine. And then spring training comes, all the bullpen arms are off the board, and he's not the same. And then what do you do? No, but again, if people just want to hear trumpets, that's a stupid reason to bring him back. I want to see him. I want to see that knee hold up in game activity. That's my reasoning for him coming back. Because you can't wait until spring to pray that it's going to be okay. Because if it isn't, you're going to put yourself behind the 8 ball because the offseason's done. And whatever moves you made are what you have. And now you have to go with it until the deadline. Yeah, it's a 6-month offseason. But I don't think the Mets want him to go to, the Dominican Winter League and pitch. They want to control this. And if you're going to control it, he's not going to – what is he going to do? Pitch in, live batting practice where it's still not real game activity, where he has to jump off the mound to get a ball or cover first base? All that is game activity. Doing that at slow speed when you're just working out or doing bullpen sessions or just pitching off a mound during batting practice and you don't have to make that quick move. I want to see that. That's important to me. I can care less about the trumpets. That means nothing to me. Yeah, it's cute. Yeah, great. I love it. Perfect. It's fun. But I want to see him jump off the mound to cover first base and trust in that leg and that knee to do something like that because it becomes mental. Physically, he might be fine. You saw it with Acuna last year. Mentally, he didn't trust that knee last year. Finally got that mental aspect out of it this year, and look what he's done. But it's not about – you're not risking nothing. You got to know going into this offseason if that knee's going to hold up in baseball activity. You can't wait until spring training and say, oh, that's the reason. Nice play by Alonso to end the inning. McGill gives up a 2-run homer to Brian Reynolds. 3-2 Mets going to the bottom of the third. Freak injury or not, it's an injury. You can't go into the offseason not knowing if Diaz can get through that mental hurdle. Because if he, again, physically, you see this with players all the time. In football, you see running backs. You see Saquon Barkley. It took him a year after his injury, right? Not that year he came back wasn't very good because the mental aspect of it, trusting your knee, is got to be there. You see it with Breece Hall of the Jets. You don't know how he's going to perform coming back, right? The trust factor mentally in your knee, making that cut, getting the first base to cover first, picking up a bunt, a slowly hit ball you got to go after. You got to plant your right leg hard to get the guy out at first. Things like that, you can't replicate at full speed. The mental aspect is probably going to be the bigger hurdle for him than the physical, because Acuna was 100% last year. You know what the problem was? He couldn't get that mental aspect to trust that knee. You see what happens when that mental aspect is gone and he trusts that knee 100%. He's an MVP. That's what you have to see. He has to get past that. And if it helps pitching the final few weeks of the season to get past that mental hurdle, then you can go into spring training knowing not just the Mets, but Diaz knowing that he can trust that knee. I think that's the more important part. That's the reason why, because I don't want to go into spring training not knowing if he trusts that knee. Because you can replicate all you want in a park in the middle of nowhere when you're not going full speed. But when you got to get to that ball, plant your right foot and throw that ball hard to first base to get the out in a big spot. Does he trust that knee to do that? Or is he going to fumble the ball because he don't trust that knee? Or make a bad throw because he didn't plant his foot? All those issues have to get past. He's got to get past that mental hurdle. And if it helps him coming back for a few weeks, and I'm not saying, pitching him, 6 times a week. If you want to pitch him once on Monday, then don't pitch him again until Wednesday. The game activity, that trust in the knee, I don't care how many bullpens you do. I don't care, how many running backs, right? You don't think Acuna had all offseason, had all spring training to trust that knee last year? He did, but he never was able to. You can't have that for a guy that you're going to be trusting every time he comes out to close the game. You can't have that. That's dangerous. That's a dangerous game. And the Mets can't afford to just go into spring training and say, "Oh, I trust it." Because if he's not as good as he was because you don't trust that knee yet, what do? So basically, if you believe that he's going to be fine going into 2024 and you don't make the necessary moves in your bullpen, and then the season comes around, the offseason's over, spring training's over, there's no deals to be had, what do? Yeah, exactly right, man.
I was talking to Alex Poe before the game today. She said when she was growing up, he used to gnaw on one side of his mustache because he was so nervous about what was going on in the Mets games, and he would literally, as the Mets were going poorly, only have half a mustache on his face. Did you say 92? 92. How good does he look? Fantastic. I've seen him around, and I've talked to him before. I was stunned when I found out that tomorrow was his 92nd birthday. Oh, man. 75 people here celebrating with him today. Oh, nice.
4-pitch walk to Vogelback is Mets a one-out base runner. Here's DJ Stewart, who cranked a home run his first time up. Goes after a first pitch change-up, and it's 0-1. So Stewart is now 3 for 3 of this series. Came off the bench yesterday, had a home run, and then
Yeah, you know what's funny, Kevin? I was at the game yesterday with with the few Met fans I have at work, with my coworkers. It was probably one of the better times I have, not worrying about a game too much. It was a lot of fun, but I was there and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do a live stream tomorrow during the game. So I'm setting it up and I put it to 7 o'clock and I'm like, my friend's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what? 7 o'clock game Wednesday. He goes, no, it's a day game. I'm like, oh, it's a travel day for Pittsburgh. And for the Mets. Might be a double play, and it is. And that ends the inning, and the Mets do not score. 3-2 Mets going to the top of the 4th. Just so you guys know, I'm gonna have to leave in the 7th inning. I got some. I gotta go to work very early because the next few days it's inventory, so I gotta. I'm one of those fools that always get picked to do things. And since I'm one of the few forklift drivers that don't mind doing 12-hour, 13-hour shifts for the next 3 days. Jungkook, you know what's funny about that? I tried it for the first time yesterday with everybody. I tell you right now, if you got I tell you, it's a sugar rush. It's dangerous. It had my heart pumping. I'm not gonna lie. It's too much. It's very good, but I couldn't eat it all together, like as a sandwich. I had to eat it step by step. Oh, give me the donut, give me the chicken, give me more chicken, then another donut. It's and the milkshake was pretty good though. I'm not gonna lie, but it's so much sugar. Holy Christ! So much salt, so much sugar. Yeah, yeah, Steve. I know. I already looked at that. Kevin, too much OT. Yeah, I had too much fun yesterday. I didn't even go to work today. I got home extremely late, and there was no way I was gonna get home and had a couple of drinks, and then I only had like an hour and a half before I had to take a shower, get dressed, go to work. Wasn't right. It wasn't really what I needed. So, but it's all good. But the next couple of days, I think what's today? Tomorrow's Thursday, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days. I got to go in around 4:30 or so, and stay until the following morning. So, fun stuff. But that's why I'm doing the live streams here. And again, these live streams during games are going to be sporadic, because obviously the games don't mean much. But I'm gonna try to do like maybe one or two. I'm gonna try to do 2 a week. Obviously we got the shows on Monday, the Mets Roundtable, the Shea Bridge Show on Sundays. Not a lot to talk about. And just so you guys know, if you got an iPhone, download the Pro Sports Fan app. I'm gonna be working with James Nolan, who also has a YouTube channel. He's gonna be my co-host on the app. We're going to be talking Mets baseball. We're going to do live streams during Met games. And we're also going to do live shows as well on the app. So it's probably going to start next week or maybe this weekend. I'm getting the final details. So if you guys know James Nolan, don't forget to subscribe to his channel. Me and him are going to be working together during the rest of the season for the Mets. And again, we're going to do live streams during games. And we're also going to do live shows. So we're going to do probably about 15 live streams for the rest of probably about 15, 16 live streams during the Mets game, and about 8 or 9 shows, just live shows. And you can interact. It's a chat room, just like the YouTube. It has a chat room. It's going to have all the stats up there for the game. It's going to have in-game analysis, all that fun stuff. So make sure you do it. I'm going to put it up right here. Give me a second. And it's right in the comment right now. I'm going to pop it up. It's a Pro Sports Fan app, or PSF as they call it. Just give me a second, guys. Just want to double check something. All right, 1 second, guys. All right.
Appearances to qualify. 2-2, and rebounds down, swinging for the second time, 98. So some serious.
I was just gonna say that right now. So that is the app right now. They're working on doing it for Android. Right now they only have it on the App Store for iPhone. I think I was talking to the VP earlier. One of the guys that I'm constantly talking to. They're gonna have the Android set up probably sometime in a week or two. So once that again, I have an Android phone, so I have a Samsung, so I actually had to know about that. But I rented an iPhone for 2 weeks until they develop the Android app Android app for it. So, but right now, if you have an iPhone, you can go to the Apple Store, Pro Sports Fans app. If you can't find it, scroll down a little bit. It's there, I promise. Or you can just type in Pro Sports Fans on Google, and the website will come up, and you can click on the link that will send you right to the app. So you can do that as well. So the Android version of it for Play Store is going to be coming out soon. And once it does, I'll keep you guys posted. So once the shows start to happen on the app, I will let everybody know on my channel that you can come over to there. It's very similar to what you're seeing right now with YouTube, except you're not going to have game day up because they don't have the rights to it. You're going to have my face and James' face up there with the game stats going on. You're going to have all the analysis. You're going to have the comment section. You're going to be able to subscribe to our shows. You're going to be able to give donations just like you do with YouTube, all that stuff. And all that's going to be sponsored and all that stuff. So me and James are going to be doing that shortly. I actually am going to reach out to James shortly. We're going to talk a little more. I'll probably have him on my channel just to say what up. People who don't know about his channel, you can go to his channel as well and subscribe to that as well. He's actually very knowledgeable and knows his shit. So that's always good. Yeah, Christian, I agree. But unfortunately, more people have Apple. More people have iPhones. So that's why they started off with the iPhones first. What are you going to do, right? I actually rented an iPhone for, I think it's 3 weeks or something like that. So the Mets, yeah. What are you going to do? So we're going to the bottom of the fourth. Mets lead 3-2. I'm gonna keep the stream up until the 7th inning because I do got to go to work in about 2 hours. So yes, Jung Ho, yes we are. Every Monday I'm doing a show with Hayden, Chris, CP, and Amish. Every Monday for the roundtable. Sunday it's me and Hayden for the Shea Bridge, and of course we'll they'll pop on every now and then during live streams during games as well. So I will let you know about that. So if you want to follow Pro Sports Fans on Twitter, just type in Pro Sports Fans and you can follow them. They'll update. And again, guys, this is an app for all sports teams, just so you guys know. They're doing football, they're doing basketball, all the pro sports, NBA, NHL, NFL. They're already setting up the NFL very, very shortly as well. So the NFL season, you can actually go on this Pro Sports app, and they're going to have hosts there watching games. During the games, they're doing shows for that as well. So it's not just baseball. Right now, they're doing the major sports in baseball because it's obviously towards the end of the season. The NFL, they're going to have that up and running, ready to go. So it's not just baseball. It's all for the pro sports. And I believe they're also going to be doing college football if you're into that. So Omar Narvaez is up. 3-2 Mets in the bottom of the fourth.
Join the shade, of course you are. You're starting the big league. It's starting. Barely get his head through the door of the suite.
You couldn't tell by my tan that I don't spend too much time out in the sun during days like this.
I didn't want to bring it up.
Omar Narvaez doubled and scored his first time up, leading off at the bottom of the fourth. And Narvaez cranks up a foul. It's 0-2. Rafael Ortega on deck, and then Jonathan Arauz. With the kids predominating all the ball. Usually the camp groups have solid color shirts. That group going with the modified tie-dye. Very nice. Different feel.
I'll be right back, guys. Listen to the game. Enjoy the game.
Took out Jonathan Arauz, who was standing in the hole. It's the only thing protecting Buck Showalter from that foul ball as it went sailing by through the opening. And a roller out to second, and Figueroa grabs the skipper and throws out Narvaez for a leg. Excellent. Now, the fall. Oh, great recovery. And he looked to tell about it. Brought it walk to the ballpark, and it came in handy. He was diving just like Pete's been diving. Wearing his Alonso jersey. Rafael Ortega drew the walk and scored around the second. It's got all three of their runs in the second. One run by Stewart, 2-run single by Lindor. Pirates got 2 runs back on Brian Reynolds, 2-run homer in the third. And that's pulled to right field over toward the line. That ball's going to land for a base hit. Ortega on his way to second. And Joe's throw will come up short. It's a double for Rafael Ortega, just his second extra base hit of the season. Pull off the end of the bat. He likes to pull. See, went out and got that hanging backdoor breaking ball. So that's up to the third extra base hit of the game. Runner in scoring position with 1 out for Arauz, who struck out his first time up today.
Shea wanted to say hi to everybody.
Away from Oviedo, who's in trouble spotting his fastball. It's now with 4 hits against Oviedo, 3 of the 4 for extra bases. Arauz just 4 for 28 as a bet, but 3 for 5 with runners in scoring position. That fastball away, it's 2-0. And again, Oviedo having trouble with that arm side run. Takes slider.
He's actually very calm today.
By the way, as Tyler McGill has already thrown 78 pitches through 4 innings, it's of note that the Mets bullpen roster churn continued today. Jose Buto, who did a good job for a while last night until he wound up taking the loss, goes back down the minors.
He likes to be held like a baby.
Pitched a handful of games for the Mets early in the season. He is back up, so Santana would be the long man out of the bullpen today. And so
Are you yawning?
long man each of the last couple of days. His short starts from
He lives rent-free around here, you know?
And Arauz down on strike for the second time. Chasing that fastball up and away. That's the third strike for Oviedo. But, you know, it's the nature of business that if you are one of those fringe long relievers and you get in a game, the likelihood is you're going to be in the minors the next day. It happened to Tyson Miller after the game on Monday. It happened to Buto after the game yesterday. And now there's Santana rejoining the Mets today. Take that spot.
Really, Christian?
There's Nimmo's.
I don't feel like I have a high IQ.
60 walks on the year now for Brandon. And he takes the fastball for a strike. So he has really gotten back to getting on base the way he's accustomed to. His on-base percentage dropped down to about 350. It's up to 362 now. And that's slapped toward the hole. That's a
There you go. That's to score a run, and it does. 4-2 Mets.
Brandon Nimmo keeps on hitting. He finds the hole for an RBI signal to make it.
You know what's funny about this? They're talking about, Nimmo's been a lot better with on base. And, numbers have been up the way Nimmo was last year. The same thing with Jeff McNeil. So you're going to tell me now they're not all of a sudden listening to all the analytics they were getting, that everybody said that that's been the biggest problem. So they're not listening to it now and doing what was successful last year. Why couldn't they do that earlier in the season? That makes no sense to me.
Magic longest for a bet this year. And it's Lindor who up at 2 with the bases loaded single in the second. Lindor now 4 for 9 in this series.
I don't understand why they play a hitter like Nimmo. Leave that left side open.
And Lindor pops one up. Mets tagged on a run. VENMO with a 2-out RBI hit. 4-2 Mets after 4.
All right, so it's 4-2 Mets going to the top of the 5th. Once again, guys, I'm going to take you through the 7th inning. I got to go to work, or hopefully it gets to the 7th inning by the time I got to go shower and change and go to work. So I'll keep you guys posted for that. So I'm looking into downloading. If you want, guys, you can actually watch the tuning in of the app that I told you about. You can download Relevant for the Android. You can be in the chat rooms and all that stuff as well. I'm gonna download it now just to see how it looks. You can use your email and all that stuff as well. You can just become a guest. It doesn't matter. So I'm just going to check it out now, just so I give you a little bit of an update on it, just to see how it works. All right, let's see. Let's see, the Astros ones are... Yeah, right now the Astros see August 16 at 6:30. All right, so I'm gonna show you what you guys can do right now. Okay, so this is for Android as of right now. You can do this, and you can watch it easily as well. So I didn't know you can do that, but it works. That's how good it works. I don't know yet. I'll let you guys know. Just give me a second. I don't know if it's working properly. All right. Give me a second, guys. Let me just figure this out really quick for you. All right. If you got Android, you can download it this way.
12 for 24 against the Mets this season.
Until they actually get the official app up. This is part of it. This is the original version, but the newer version is just on iPhone. But you can download it this way. Give me a second.
Reflected in his numbers this year. Third time through the batting. They've been kind of ugly.
Give me a second.
Good off-speed pitch at 22. Third time through the order this year. The opposition sitting 400.
Here we go.
With a 1086 OPS against McGill. He's ahead on Hayes 1 and 2 with Reynolds and McCutcheon.
All right, so see there it goes right there. RELEVNT. Download that and you can get into all the chat rooms. It is a chat room, and when they go live and you subscribe to it, that actual, like, you'll click on Mets and you'll see all the live streams out of there at the moment, the scheduled live streams, the chat rooms that you can be in, and all that stuff as well.
And the breaking ball hit short right at Lindor. And so Hayes retired for the first time today, 1 out of the 5th. It's going to be a nice sigh of relief from McGill. Second straight innings retired the leadoff hitter after they reached in each of the first 3 innings. Here's Reynolds, who accounted for the 2 Pittsburgh runs with a home run on the 0-2 pitch in the third. His 18th home run of the year. Really first pitch curveball in for a strike, 0-1. Let's check in with Steve.
No, guys, yesterday we saw a moment between Francisco Lindor and David Peterson on the mound. The bases were loaded in the third inning, and Lindor came in and had a pretty lengthy discussion where he seemed to have some pointed words for Peterson. Peterson came back, struck out the next 2 batters to get out of the
All
inning.
right, guys. So yes, you can download it that way on your
basically what he told Peterson was,
on Android. Just download Relevant app, and it's the same. It's the older version of the app, but it works the same way. The newer version is just for iPhone until they get it. You know, and there's another reason why, like a guy like Avaruz, who is the guy that could possibly take Luis Guillorme's spot, and he has a little bit more pop than Luis Guillorme as well. But as you see, made that great play at third base to get Reynolds by a step.
Runner Reynolds, and I don't know who was with his momentum taking him into foul territory. Got that ball right on target. Go ahead, Steve.
So he was just basically encouraging him that your stuff is good enough.
Araúz, I love it.
Sequencing anything here. Just
Best
figure
name in
out
baseball.
what pitch you can throw and command in the zone, have conviction in it, and throw it. And that's exactly what Peterson did for the next two batters. And he said that Lindor does an excellent job at that, at kind of commanding the infield, recognizing when his pitcher needs a blow, needs a mental reset, and to get back on track. And so he credits Lindor with really getting him out of that inning and getting him back into the right attack mode phase of the game that he wasn't really in at that moment.
Thanks for following up on that, Steve, because we were really wondering at the time. It was probably about as lengthy a conversation as we had seen Lindor have with a pitcher in his tenure with the Mets. I mean, he was very emphatic in his conversation and then in his celebration of Peterson's success after the 2 strikeouts. To him on McCutcheon, who struck out and grounded out over 2.
McGill got good stuff. Throwing 97, 98, got good stuff. He just has to figure out a way to control it.
He thought he had been struggling up until that point. He said that his first couple of starts, he knew he was on a limited pitch count, and so he didn't really think much about getting deep in the game. He was just going out there attacking as McCutcheon walks. But yesterday, he said he was so focused on trying to get deep and now that he had a 90-plus pitch count limit, that he kind of got away from just focusing on what was right in front of him. He was thinking so overarching about the game. And again, it was Lindor who came in there and said, "Hey, just start making your pitches. Your pitches are good enough." And I think it was a big moment for him yesterday.
Meanwhile, this is a big moment for Tyler McGill. It was very disappointing at bat. He just threw against McCutcheon after retiring 6 in a row, getting to the brink of
92 pitches for McGill, 2 outs in the 5th. High pitch count. We'd love to see it be lower, but it is what it is at this point.
See if McGill can buckle down here and get himself through this troublesome part of the game. Zaleski's walked and struck out today, and there's a nice fastball running in, and it's 1-1.
Boy, he threw it by it there. That was a fastball and 4-seamer.
Zaleski 21 home runs this year. McCutcheon at first with 2 out. Again, he runs one up and in, but you can see the velocity down. Now, this is what happens with McGill. Went from 97 and 98. Now he's throwing 94, 95 as his pitch count gets into the 90s. Beckford up in the bullpen. That's drilled down the right field line by Sawinski, and that'll go to the corner. McCutcheon digging for third. It sticks in the corner. Stewart has to go get it. Away McCutcheon home. The relay football.
Got him. Great relay to get him out. Good job to end the inning. Great relay by Jeff McNeil hitting the cutoff man, and Lindor throws him out. I'm sorry, excuse me. What a play. What a play. Stewart hits his cutoff man, Jeff McNeil, a bullet to Navarez to get McCutcheon at the plate, and that ends the 5th inning. That is what, fundamentals matter. Something that the Mets in 2023 have been terrible at. Fundamentals matter. Little things like that the Mets had problems with all year. Little things like that. That was what they did so well last year. The basics. You do the basics well, you have a good chance of winning those games. It's very simple. That was a perfect relay. McNeil gets it in the corner, throws it, hits the cutoff man. Stewart gets it, hits the cutoff man. Jeff McNeil makes a perfect throw to Navarez to get McCutcheon at home to end the inning. Mets lead 4-2 going to the bottom of the 5th. Once again, guys, don't forget to please hit on that like button. We are going through a live stream here for a Mets game, Mets versus Pirates rubber game of the series. Mets are looking to just show some life, which they've been playing somewhat better as of late. A lot of good things I've seen, but again, I don't take much into it since the pressure is basically off at this point. So I don't really care about the numbers. I'm more concerned about the young kids and guys that can be depth pieces on this roster next year, like Arauz, DJ Stewart, Ryan Ortega. These are guys that you're going to need if injuries happen next year. Guys with depth in your farm system. That's important as well. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. So the Mets, after today, will be traveling to St. Louis and Atlanta, which will be interesting. And then they come back home to round up August against the Angels and the Texas Rangers. We're going to see old friend Max Scherzer, and there's a pretty good chance that DeGrom might be in the dugout for that. Just a little inkling that I found out yesterday. All right. 4-2 Mets, bottom of the fifth. So this is what's going to happen, guys. It took a little longer this last inning and a half. So after this bottom of the fifth, I'm going to call it a stream because it's almost 3 o'clock, and I got to start going to get ready for work. So just giving you guys a heads up. Once again, guys, don't forget, if you have an iPhone, please download the Pro Sports Fans app on iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, you have an Android. The Relevant app, RELEVNT. It's the same app, a little bit of an older version of the Pro Sports Fans app, but you get the same thing. You get all the sports, all the major sports. You can listen to the live streams of hosts that are going live during games, and they'll have shows when games are not going on as well. I'll be working with James Nolan. He'll be my co-host during the live streams for the rest of the year of baseball. Live stream during games, and of course shows during the weeks as well. So make sure you download those apps. If you have Android or iPhone, if you have an iPhone, Pro Sports Fans apps, and the Relevant app if you have Android.
Perfect throw to Narvaez. Full count to Alonso after Oviedo got ahead. And the third base coach had to send McCutcheon 2 outs. It took a perfectly executed relay play from both Stewart and McNeil to get him. And it's ball 4, so Alonso's on the leadoff walk. That's 5 walks now for Oviedo. Here's your Carolina here will help the team for a moment. Perfect throw to McNeil. McNeil gets rid of it quickly. Well done. And that head first slide, boy, you can get hurt with catcher with shin guards. It's clear. Well, that's going to be on for Johan Oviedo.
Right wing, I just saw you popped up over here as a member. Perfect.
Run at least with average speed. Perfect. Now McNeil turns. It's gone parallel to the line. You don't want to have get the relay with your back to home plate. We're going to have a pitching change. So Oviedo out for Rocky coming in. Calling the bullpen brought to you by Nissan. Shop NissanUSA.com.
Taking a seat and grab. I know this looks like a soft blockbuster, but this is Nissan sales event time. 5 drop looks, this Nissan bro. That's what Now comes the great star of the show.
So we are in the bottom of the fifth. There is going to be, I believe there will be a pitch and change. So there'll be a pitch and change. Baraki is coming in for the Pirates. After this inning, guys, I will call it a stream. Unfortunately, I got to go to work. What are you going to do, right? But make sure you hit on that like button before the stream ends. And I will keep you posted on the next show that I'll be having today. Tomorrow's Thursday. I don't think I will. Maybe I will. I might do a live stream tomorrow for the Mets-Cardinals game. I think that's an 8 o'clock start tomorrow because it's in St. Louis. And 7:15. Okay. So 7:15, I'll probably do it. If not Thursday, I'll do one on I'll do it. I'll probably do it Thursday night. Cardinals Mets. Those are always nice to see those two teams play each other, even though they both suck, but at the very least. So right now the Mets are tied for the 7th spot in the draft right now with those records. Right now, Detroit got the 6th spot. Again, once again, guys, the Mets, if they end up in the top 6 of the draft, they do not drop down 10 spots because they're over the luxury tax threshold. So if they're 7th, they drop down to 17th. So to protect that pick, they got to be in the top 6. They got to start losing a lot of games here. You know, the Pirates are one of those teams as well that are basically the same record as the Mets. So you got to figure that one out at the moment. We'll see how that goes. Let's see if the Mets can score some runs here in the 5th. Guy on first, nobody out. 4-2 Mets, bottom 5th, Jeff McNeil up.
Third baseman Hayes is way in the hole.
Well, he's been good against lefties this year. You see 154 average. Started his career in Toronto. And McNeil fouls one away.
Not a good day at the office.
Eric Shelton, the Pirates manager, talking to his starter, Oviedo. Walked 5 and 4 hits plus through 78 pitches, 5 hits, 3 strikeouts, and 1 run walk. 4 runs against him so far. They did much better against Oviedo than they did the first time around this year. That breaking ball is fouled off. Defensive cut by McNeil just to stay in the at-bat.
It wasn't even a cut, it was a check swing.
That was
Check swing. I don't know what.
it was more like a block. That's drilled down the right field line. Wow. I mean, you know how a goalie sometimes uses his glove, sometimes uses a blocker on his other hand. That was like goalie. Is that what it's called, a blocker? Blocker, yeah. Stick save, glove save, blocker save.
Hey, Bob Chuckerman.
0-2 McNeil. And just got a piece of that cover to stay in the at-bat. But Rocky is giving him an awful rough time. There it is. It's like Hollywood Squares. Jeff McNeil the block. Charlie Weaver. Paul Lynn. Back, waiting on deck. And McNeil lifts this one to right center. Should be easy for Sawinski. 1 out.
Wasn't Charles Nelson Riley up in one of those squares too? He was hilarious.
Charlie Weaver. Yep.
Well, McNeil's first at bat, he threw his helmet. Second out, he was angry, and this time he kind of contained himself.
I think he realized that he was just a little overmatched against the lefty here. So here's Vogelbach, who's looking for his first hit of the year against the left-hander. He's 0 for 13. Today he's lined out to first and drawn a walk. There goes Alonso. The throw by Rodriguez.
And Alonso tries to steal. Oh, he's safe. Alonso tried to steal second. Did he get there? It looks like he was.
He's been caught this year. He had been 4 for 4.
Yep, they're not going to challenge.
He came off the bag.
Did he keep the tag on? Yeah, yes, he did.
Yep, he's out.
Just couldn't keep contact.
A 2-6.
2-6. 2 out and nobody on. And Vogelbach takes a cutter that was called a ball. Like a strike from here. 2-1. It's only the second time in his career Lobs has been thrown out trying to steal. 14 for 16 now. Vogelbach swings and misses at the cutter, and it's 2-2. You can see why Milwaukee has such good numbers against lefties. Usually that cutter is a weapon against righties, but he uses it against the lefties. Let's haven't figured it out yet. Full count to Vogelbach. J. Stewart will be next. 2-out walk. It's DJ Stewart.
All right. 2-out walk by Vogelbach. DJ Stewart coming up. Hit a solo home run in the second deck in right field. 4-2 Mets, bottom of the fifth. After this inning, guys, I will be calling it a stream. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night for Mets Cardinals.
First hit against the lefty this year. He had 5 at-bats against them. Stewart homered his first time up today, his second in 2 days. He takes that cutter in the dirt, and it's 2-0. Lucky got McNeil on a fly ball. Matched him the at-bat. Walked both back, and now he's 2-0 Stewart. Will he throw him a fastball, or is it going to be all cutter? Another cutter. That one's in for a strike. 2-1.
Give the overcutter right there, kind of backed up inside.
Another left-hand hitter, Narvaez on deck, and then Ortega, yet another after that.
Ooh.
Mentioned it at the outset today. The Mets went with every available left-handed bat in the lineup. 8 left-handed swingers in all, including switch hitters. First time they had that this year. So Derek Shelton immediately going to his lefty out of the pen. 3-1 though to Stewart. And DJ takes a rip at that cutter and misses, and it's 3-2. Rivas will play behind Vogelbach. He'll be running with 3-2, 2 out. And Stewart asks for time as the plane goes over. Wow. There you go. That's like the old days of Shea.
Doesn't sound terribly loud. It used to be awfully loud at Shea.
Three-two coming. And Stewart waits that one.
The Barucki loves his slider.
See if the Mets can get a 2-out RBI here.
Say that he's thrown his cutter 56% of the time this year. I believe it. But I don't think he's thrown anything but his cutter. He threw one curveball. That's about it. And there's another.
Oh, goodbye. Yeah, another home run by DJ Stewart. 2-run homer with 2 outs. 6-2 Mets. Looks like a lefty that can hit a lefty. How about that? Again, I have no problem with this guy. DJ Stewart can be a possibility as a bench piece. He's got that natural power. And he can hit lefties. 6-2 Mets in the fifth. DJ Stewart with his second home run of the day. You know, sometimes that raw power is not a bad thing to have on the bench. Stayed in there with the lefty.
Home run game for DJ Stewart. Last one came in 2021 with the Orioles.
Oh, flat slider, man.
Now Narvaez punches one in the center field.
And that ends the inning. Not before DJ Stewart gets a 2-out, 2-run home run, 2-home run day for DJ Stewart, a guy that's shown a ton of power in the minors and is showing it at the big league level right now. Again, type of guy that you can always have. Never hurts to have that type of power coming off the bench. But, hey, listen, you just never know. Again, these guys are trying out. This is basically a showcase for these guys to get a possibility to have a chance to make the team next year. It's always a possibility. So, with that said, guys, everybody have a great rest of your day. Hopefully, the Mets hold on to win the game. I will see you tomorrow night. Mets Cardinals at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Game will be at 7:15 tomorrow. Mets will be in St. Louis to face another disappointing team in the Cardinals for Game 1. So with that said, guys, everybody have a great night. And once again, download the Pro Sports Fans app on iPhone and the Relevant app if you have Android to check out the shows that me and James will be doing going forward. And with that said, have a good day. Let's go Mets. I'll see you next time, guys. Have a good night.